Unless somebody dropped something exceptionally large here that exploded and pulled them down. You think this is just another bunker that I'm showing you. By the way, the right way up for this is this. But this is built so different than the others. For years, we have talked about and visited the Ost-Wall fortifications, Burg. But that was only the blocking position to defend the direct route to Berlin, and it is impressive, as you all know. It was often referred to as the Maginot Line of Germany. But further up, it links up with the Pommernstellung, or the Pomeranian Wall, and that is similarly as impressive. And it was heavily contested in 1944-45 as the Russians advanced through East Prussia and initially stalled in front of Warsaw. It was the East Pomeranian offensive that prevented Zhukov from reaching Berlin in February, the object of the massive Vistula Order offensive. Since it became a priority to clear German forces from the Pomeranian first, it here was the Germans struck back and held the thin line. Rosenkovsky opened the offensive on 24 February using fresh troops of Kostelov's 19th Army, but after an initial advance of some 20 kilometers, they were halted by intense German resistance. On 26 February, he inserted the 3rd Guards Tank Corps east of Neustädtin, where they achieved a penetration of 40 kilometers and relieved Kostelov's command. The 3rd Guards Tank Corps broke through Baldenburg, while Neustädtin, on the front held left flank, fell to the 3rd Guard Cavalry Corps on 27 February. General Weiss had hurriedly assembled the 7th Panzer Corps, including remnants of the 7th Panzer Division, at Rummelsburg to threaten the 19th Army's flank. However, after Soviet breakthrough in Köslin on 2nd March, the 2nd Army found itself completely cut off from the rest of the army group. Danzig further east remained surrounded until nearly the end of the war, but the Pommernstellung gave a good account of itself in places, and it had been upgraded from 1944 when it was reactivated. However, what made this defensive line so interesting is that it was constructed from the 1930s, before Hitler came to power. It was therefore designed in the mid-1920s. It was to guard against a possible attack from Poland. Much of this position was constructed in extreme secrecy, and some of the large fortified positions were connected by long tunnel systems on the ground. And despite many of these were destroyed after the war, I have found quite a few remaining intact, and it is fascinating to see these, as they are the step between World War I and the first East Wall bunkers and the Regelbauten, and the large part of this position hinged around the old German-Prussian Truppenübungsplatz Großborn, which is still today somewhat active with NATO troops. But Großborn is an entirely different experience in itself. It was a dedicated military town, constructed only for the military. Guderian had his own house here, and the officers' casino, the conference center for the German soldiers and officers, is, or rather was, amazing, although it was quite a bit too flash for Hitler's taste. I'm going to start the journey of the Pommern Wall with a simple fighting bunker, and then another one, something that I had never really expected to see. These were constructed before Tod or Regelbauten became a thing, so there's a lot of lessons which have been learned right here, and of course many of these were upgraded in 1944 as the front line rolled this way, and a lot of Trebrucks and Panzer garages were constructed here as well. This part of the Pomeranian Wall was located between two lakes, built from 1932 to 35. Its task was to defend the city nearby and the road running towards Pila and the railway line. There are also newer Tobruks built in 1944. This bunker grouping took the shape of two lines of shelters. The first one included main shelters, multiple sector facilities, and two single sector shelters and anti-tank ditches. The Biwak West, built in 1935 to 36, is the most powerful building on the entire Pomeranian Wall. There were two fighting positions for 4 MG-42 machine guns, protected by two 6-embrasure armored domes. A position for the MG-08 heavy machine gun, protected by a 3-embrasure armored dome, and an artillery observer's position with his own armored dome as well. We get to go into a bunker that is not totally destroyed. Imagine that! So, this whole piece lifted off, and it was originally guarding this entrance. Wow. So here you see what's left of the armored plate. So here would have been a machine gun or an anti-tank cannon. Behind the Panzerplatten. So it was a little destroyed, but some really cool people decided to turn it into a museum. And I'm not going to argue people doing that. I'm a big fan of people turning these into museums because this is far into Poland. Access to the block was protected by a firing position with an armored plate and a firing position for an MG-08 as well. And something else that'll blow your mind. This defensive area, construction and design of it, started in 1932. So, well, when they blew the front of this, that would be the emergency exit. And here would have been the fighting compartment with the steel wall. That thing might be a part of it over there. This is really large. I mean, I know that this is stupidly large. This room in itself is way bigger than anything I've seen. Here's the defensive. There's got to be a wall missing or something. There must be a wall missing here. They cleaned out the defensive firing position. I can get out of the way, you know. So, a non-destroyed bunker. Ooh, well, you can see a bit of shrapnel on the wall. Something exploded in here. And there. This is actually strange. There's shrapnel on one wall only. I am not aware of a grenade that will explode in one direction only. And I see those attachments on the wall. And wood in the wall for attachments. Pipes. This is large and straight. I like this. Another interesting design feature. Just an indent. Here's another emergency exit right here. And judging from the sunlight at the end there, I'm thinking that's where the fighting position was. And there was a steel dome that is no longer there. This is really the very earliest part of the northern section of the east wall. But I don't even think this is not even the Pomeranian position. There was a lot of small defensive lines. And this is one of them, and this is one of the early ones. And these shelf cutouts, I mean, what bunker have you seen that in? And here's for light niche. Get along. There's just details I have not seen, not on the eastern wall and not on the Atlantic wall. I am really digging this. Another one of those. Look at this. Again for light. But this is just so different. In the Regelbauten, you never see a shelving like this. Or cut out like this. That's interesting. Steel door that's been removed, which is what I'm imagining the fate of the dome is. A lot of wooden dowels. Some straights I don't see for the beds, but there's a technical room. Funny thing about the technical room, it has a few of the original parts in them. Have the ventilation pipes, the anti-gas filters, the attachments on the walls, and the technical running through the floor. Oh, I think both of the domes have been unceremoniously removed. Yep. Here's the dome. But look at that. Look at that heavy steel beam there connects to that. This was not one of the regular domes because that would have been anchored much lower. So what this would have been a Pommernstellung with several machine guns openings. And this would possibly have been one floor staircase up to the firing position. After all the destruction we've seen, it is so interesting to see one that's been intact and preserved, and is being preserved. Hallelujah. These shelves are gonna blow me away. I just love that they are here. They're still using the wooden attachments for their lighting cable here. That's awesome. But here the wooden dowels don't go all the way down in the walls like they would like later in the war. That's a big one. And here would have been another. This looks more like a dome, but it looks smaller somehow. And the lip is up there. This is not one of the regular Ost-Wall domes we see. Has a heavy foundation. This was probably the floor. Seeing the little teeth there? That was the floor. And the anchors are not as big. It was anchored, but not in the same way. If this had been one of the, also I'm not that deep underground. This is an above ground position to some degree.
There's a little twist in the middle there. Again, a very large room. These rooms are large. And the shelves and the light niche that you can, the light niche there again. And the shelving. I really dig that they did this. It's almost like a trench. Betrieb, Ventil und Ventilation. Over here. The checks ropes, a lot of stuff in here. So they had 2 fighting domes for air protection. No flamethrowers, no automotors. Okay, so where's the tunnel? But this is built so different than the others. And this is so roomy and so big. And I have to go pull on the rebar. And it is in one piece, it's intact, it's awesome. And I love how they used the original World War II wood to hang their light fixtures. Quite a few shells and grenades went off in here. One would think almost more for fun. So now there was a tunnel. Water well, I'm guessing. Wait a minute now. This is a tunnel. This is a munition tunnel. How the hell do I get down there?
This is indeed the vertical connecting tunnel to the detached fighting position that we'll see from the outside.
What does it say by the door? There must be, I'm confused about this one. It's stupidly interesting though. So, to the other fighting position, would we go through here after all? Or has that part been destroyed? I think that part may have been missing. Now I'm looking at rebar, which is actually, again, early bunker construction rebar, far thicker here. See in the wall, far thicker than it is on the Atlantic wall and subsequent east wall. So they did change. They definitely changed the way they did things in between. That is significant. Well, here's the rebar right here. See, my finger is just thicker than my finger. That is significant. Here's a piece of the Panzerplatten. So we go up. Some hill somewhere. This is one of the emergency exits. Would have been filled with sand, so you could scoop it up from the inside. We're on top of the fort now, looking for. So now the thing about this again is, I thought this was maybe a half dome. This is all round. It had a shroud on the back, so we're probably looking at 3 to 5 firing ports. Huge anchors like we're used to seeing on the east wall, but again heavily reinforced with the rebar far thicker than the Atlantic wall I love the evolution of this. I don't see the hallway unless you crawl down that shaft and then over to it. No, I mean I think that would be where it would have gone. You'd go down that shaft and then over somewhere outside the museum area. Again, I think, judging with this piece of cement here and how heavily built up this is with rebar sticking up, obviously this wasn't here before it was demolished, so I am thinking this also had a shroud where I'm standing, and the defensive position will be here. And just next to the fort, holy mother of a fuck! Seriously? This is just like in Denmark. The destroyed forts. Wow. Holy blah. New word.
The main block and the advanced combat block, they were connected by an 85-meter long underground walkway, which is somewhat inaccessible today.
And you just find a thing. This looks like something out of Star Wars the way it sits. It's just... my enthusiasm level has just peaked. In Denmark, you have bunkers that were built on the Atlantic Wall and of course out by the ocean, and because of the erosion of the sea they keep sliding down, falling down, and they look like this. But this I had not expected to see in the middle of nowhere. This is so cool. And, well, if you ever wanted to know what the bunkers look like underneath, well, that's what they look like. I don't know where to start. I'm just... blah. New word. Insert new word. Don't know what this is either. But it's full crap. This is not a Tobruk. This is also not a Tobruk. Well, I'm glad he said something, because we would happily have gone into the car and just driven away.
But I am surprised, because he taught me about this without any expression on his face.
Yeah, it's just like...
just go there, there is something, and what you can see...
Oh, by the way, there
normal, yes?
there's something behind that tree over there. It's kind of interesting. Like, you think? If you ever wondered what a bivak looked like underneath, and this is not a balcony. The cool thing is, so there's a tunnel leading up to that thing up there, and I'm imagining this tunnel was connected possibly to this thing. It's a little hard to determine at the present angle. Oh, I mean, we don't really need lights to go in here. We just go in here. Oh. This is like the tunnel at the Ludendorff position. See, this is made in sections and then clamped together, and they dug it in. There's a spider in my hair, but isn't there generally always? Alright, I guess we need a little light then. Fine, hang on. It's a little crooked, but I guess that big bunker on the hill didn't fall down on its own, so. If this is an indication how tall the Ludendorff small tunnel was to one of the outer positions. All right, there's a better way.
There's the way?
Nope, it's blocked, but I'm okay with it because I get to walk through this tunnel, and tunnels make me happy, apparently. All right, there's a different way into the bunker on the hill. This was connected. Of course, all these were connected. I think this elevation change was there. I don't know. But this is really, really cool. And here you get to see the tunnel from the outside. And you see the metal bands, how this was put together. This was dug into the ground, they put in the pieces, and then they covered it up between the positions. I actually can see the marks of the wood. So, upwards? Damn, why is history always uphill? Well, alright, I guess we can take a look. Just look, it's a thin little wall, but the heavy piece of rebar, and it's still. I can't help but think that they started building this before it dawned on the high command that they might need a crap load of steel and metal to build tanks and planes. And that's why they eventually started building the bunkers with less rebar. This is a very big piece of Lego. So, fighting front is that way. And then there's this, which would once sat up here, connected by a tunnel here, into the mountain beneath me, into this.
Now, one thing that was starting to gnaw at me was, how exactly did this thing end up at the bottom of a huge crater? Because if the Russians had caused this, I had to know why and how.
Alright, so on top of this, somebody tragically passed away in 1984. Okay, let's try not to replicate that event. Hang on. This was the back of a Panzerturm that was anchored to this thing, sitting right there. Could have been an entranceway and the flat backing for a Panzerturm. Alright, seems to be plenty of light down here. Oh yeah, you can come out the other side. Oh. This is the emergency exit. This is the emergency exit that is right now hovering about 30 meters above ground. You know, I don't think whoever built this ever thought their emergency exit would be high up in the air like this. Ah, I get it. This is where there was an accident. And this is why. Okay, so the shafts are the way into the tunnels that connects the forts. I guess almost a vertical climb. I don't think they had any elevator or anything here. That's where the accident was. Somebody fell down in this hole. Just like the other one. So that was the tunnels they had. So you got to go into these places with light and a plan. You really, really do. This is the emergency exit. That's supposed to be really deep underground. So you go in and you climb up. Yeah, you know. All right. So most of this, you know, what the hell happened here? Because most of this would be underground. This was supposed to have been covered. And I don't know, but for any of these to have been underground, given that they both look like they're sitting on the peak of a hill, unless somebody dropped something exceptionally large here that exploded and pulled them down, you actually have to go ask him what the hell happened here, because
Yeah.
this is the emergency exit. This is the emergency exit that you're supposed to crawl in and climb up a hole onto level ground. How in the hell did this end up sitting here? The only way I can think of for this to have happened is if somebody detonated a very, very, very large piece of explosive in this valley, this crater. This looks like a big crater. There was no bombs this size during the Second World War. Holy shit, this is not. Again, that hole is the emergency exit. What happened to all the soil here? What happened to all the dirt, the ground? Is this one giant crater? And if so, what in the name of God made it in 1945? Sometimes you show up and you get more questions. Look at this, the rung ladder there, that also leads down to an emergency exit. This top of this used to be on level ground as well. This is the emergency exit. You climb up this. This was underground. All of this was underground. How did it end up like this? Yeah, that's the fighting compartment in there. Some of the original color is still there. I'm thinking it was blown up after the war. But how? Jesus. Well, I said a minute ago how cool it was to go through a museum bunker that wasn't destroyed. And then there's this. Jesus. I mean, the amazing thing is it is roughly intact. So you think this is just another bunker that I'm showing you. By the way, the right way up for this is this. It's a huge solid roof. Here was the close defensive position for the door. Hey, USA 1906-20, you could have called. I mean, I don't know what to say to this. I really don't know what to say to this. This is the right way up. This is amazing. This really is something else. Just when you thought you've seen it all, or at least I was starting to think, well, you know, how much different can they be? I stumbled on a whole new fortification, line, construction, and destruction. Yes, this was part of the back wall, and that little possible ventilation would be an out.
Alright, so it appears that at some point after the war, the story goes that they were mining in this area and it was somehow flooded and the ground collapsed and the bunkers separated and one dropped to where it is now. But I can't seem to find any photos of this momentous event or anything else to support this story, but this is the story. In total, the fortifications of the Pomeranian Wall includes over 1,000 reinforced concrete structures of various types. Road anti-tank barriers, tank obstacles, minefields, trenches as well. The planning for these began already after World War I, but the actual construction did not commence until 1930. Many of them sadly were blown up and destroyed after the war, but there are enough that I can show you to give you a good idea of what these were and how they worked. And this we will do over several episodes to come, and a very special one from Course Bonn, where also in the Cold War nuclear weapons were stored by the Russians in shelters dedicated to this. Behind me is Wernher von Braun's first test stand. Down the road is Diebner's nuclear reactor. Over there is the Maginot Line and all its amazing forts. I'm visiting them all and I'm bringing them to you. So I really appreciate you like, follow, and share what I'm doing, trying to document all these important historical locations. And if you feel like you want to watch more pictures or documents that I use for these, go to lostbattlefields.com. And if you feel like helping me out with my travels, because gasoline and travel and airfare is expensive, my PayPal is there, protectionserviceint.com. You are more than welcome, but you don't have to. I appreciate all your support and all your help, and I love seeing these locations, and I love bringing them to you.